San Francisco 49ers faithful, I have the winning formula. Let's get it. Welcome to the Cayman's Island podcast, where we talk all things San Francisco 49ers. I'm your host, David Cayman, and in today's show, I will be giving everyone my thoughts on what the San Francisco 49ers must do strategy-wise in the upcoming 2026 NFL Draft. And I'm going to go ahead and state my claim right now. The 49ers need to draft the best player available, period. Not drafting for need, not drafting to replace someone, not drafting to protect a decision that was made incorrectly last year. This roster has a lot of talent, but it's aging. And there are too many spots on this roster that need youth and explosion. And when you start to draft scared, you draft average. Drafting for need sounds absolutely reasonable. We have to fix this. We have to replace this player. We can't go into the season thin at this position. We're probably going to let JJ walk. But here's what really happens when you draft to try to replace something. You reach, you move a guy up your board artificially. You take a position a year too early. You can pass on an overall better football player. And when you pass on the better player, faithful, those type of mistakes, they can haunt you. As we know firsthand, there's still several draft mistakes that the 49ers front office has made that's still talked about every year, regardless of it's draft time or not. And in free agency patches holes, but the draft builds greatness. And we've seen what happens when the need drives decisions. You take a look back at 2020, right? When we let DeForest Buckner walk out the door, we drafted Javon Kinlaw. Now, that was a we need to replace production immediately type of move. Kinlaw had traits, he had talents. I would even go so far as to say the upside was definitely there. But replacing an all-pro like Buckner, that's never going to be a plug-and-play situation unless you get very, very blessed, very, very lucky. And that's what happens when your urgency outweighs your value, okay? You don't have to draft replacement. You just simply draft the best football player available. Now, you take a look back at the 2024 draft, and I feel this is a perfect example. When the San Francisco 49ers drafted Ricky Pearsall. Now, I want to start by being completely fair. Ricky Pearsall has showed flashes. In fact, to be honest with you guys, if that man had not gotten shot and he had his full off-season work that he was able to put in, I really feel like his body would be a lot more prepared than it is now. And so if those situations hadn't occurred, I really feel like Ricky's got the traits and the talents to be a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. But his development took a hit. But I do feel like they saw the writing on the wall with Deebo Samuel. And the Niners really tried to get ahead of it. They really did. And possibly maybe went a year too early at wide receiver. Planning ahead is good, but drafting ahead of need can cost you elite value in other places throughout the draft. I'm big on don't draft for tomorrow's fear. Draft for today's absolute best talent at position. And then you can run into a situation where you have the illusion of winning the draft. You take a look back, man, at 2017, okay? 2017, when the Niners traded back with the Chicago Bears, still got their guy at number 3 overall in Solomon Thomas, got extra draft capital. traded back up in the first round, got Reuben Foster out of Alabama, linebacker out of Alabama. Man, fans were fired up. I remember watching that draft. It was the first year of the Kyle and John Lynch regime. And I was sitting there like, did we really just trade back, get more draft capital, get Solomon Thomas, trade back up and get Reuben Foster? And the whole time I'm thinking to myself, man, if Reuben Foster can just stay out of trouble, man, this is a ridiculous draft. I didn't even care about the rest of the picks. You could have just gave me those two guys, and I'm like, that's an A+. In fact, most analysts, if you go back and look at the grades, gave the Niners like at worst case scenario an A- back then. Even though that the C.J. Beathard pick, I believe that's the year they drafted C.J. Beathard. That was a stretch, but who cares? I mean, you're playing with house money at that point. We all thought they crushed it, and it just didn't work out. And that's the draft. You can win in the month of April and lose come October. That's just the way the draft is. And so, every pick carries risk. So if risk is guaranteed, why not take a swing on elite talent? You take a look at last year, and when the Niners drafted Mykel Williams, there was a clear need on the defensive line. I feel like he came in, definitely improved the run defense. And I feel like, I know he got injured, but I feel like he's going to be a solid player. And you could tell instantly when the man went down, the run defense got worse. But when you lock into one position, okay, you just take a look at last year. When you lock into one position, that's clearly a need. You miss on a Tyler Warren. You miss on an Emeka Ibuka. You miss on a Gray Zabel, right? And you look at and sometimes you think you even got it all together, and then the whole league misses on somebody like a Carson Wessinger, right? Swessinger. And so that's what happens when your draft board shrinks because of positional urgency. So I would say don't narrow your board. Let the board come to you. I think that's the best way to do it. Now you look at this 27th overall pick. I feel it's simple. It's almost a win-win for the Niners. There's so many areas that need youth, that need speed. Whatever happens at 27, you look at your board, you come to a consensus. Your highest graded player there, you take them. If that's Kenyon Sadiq, tight end out of Oregon, you take him. If it's Lee Hunter, defensive tackle, I don't care that you focused on defensive tackle last year with Alfred Collins and C.J. West. If that is your guy, you take the player. I'm going to take it a step further. If it's KC Concepcion, I know you took Ricky a few years ago. If that's your highest player on the board, you pull the trigger on that and you roll with it. The draft is about protecting. The draft is not about protecting past picks. It's about stacking the roster. Draft talent and sort it out later. That's what you should do, period. Now I'm going to give you a very unpopular take, and this is just my opinion. Back in 2021, when the 49ers gave away all that draft capital to move up to number 3 overall and take Trey Lance, a lot of fans were upset by that move. I wasn't whatsoever. If you believe that there is a Patrick Mahomes level talent out there, you pull the trigger, you move up and you go get your guy. You don't hesitate. You don't play timid. You don't worry about getting an unfavorable grade on Twitter or X, right? There are too many misses in the draft anyway to play it safe. So for example, if the Dolphins are willing to deal and Reuben Bain Jr. is your guy and, you can make a trade at 11, you go get him. I don't care that you drafted Mykel Williams last year. If Caleb Downs is there, that's an elite level talent. I don't care what you're working with and how many DBs you've drafted in last draft. You move up, you go get your guy. You will never know unless you take the swing. And championships, faithful, require sometimes you take a swing. This roster needs youth. It needs some explosion. It needs some upside. It really needs some difference makers. And I feel that in this draft coming up, there are some difference makers out there. Draft the best player available, Kyle and John. Do not draft scared this time, guys. Well, 49ers faithful, that's the show today. As always, really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch the channel. If you wouldn't mind, remember to hit that like button. Remember to subscribe. If you happen to run into another 49ers faithful out there, show them the channel on your phone. It really does help out. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. Do you agree with my take on the draft strategy? Drop your comments out there. I'd love to see them. As always, guys, take care, be blessed, and go Niners.